What if the heaviest burden you carry isn't something you can touch, but the invisible weight of a relationship you know you need to release? Picture yourself standing at the edge of a fog-draped forest, the air sharp with the scent of wet moss and cedar, your hands gripping a frayed rope tied to someone or something you've held onto far too long. Letting go feels like leaping into a void, doesn't it? Yet, as Elias Moreau, a visionary psychologist who reshaped how we see the human soul, once taught, letting go isn't about losing. It's about reclaiming the sacred space within you, a space where your truest self can finally breathe. Letting go of someone is one of life's most heart-wrenching choices. Even when your mind screams, it's the right path, your heart pulls you back, whispering memories of shared laughter, quiet moments, or unresolved pain. Elias, whose ideas illuminated the dance between our conscious and unconscious minds, believed every person who crosses our path is no coincidence. They're a mirror, reflecting parts of ourselves we haven't yet faced. Our dreams, our fears, our unhealed wounds. Think of someone who's left a deep mark on your life. Maybe it's a lover, a friend, or a family member. That connection, Elias would say, was meant to teach you something profound. Let me tell you about Maya, a 37-year-old artist I met in a cozy coffee shop, rain streaking the windows of a sleepy coastal town. Her auburn hair was tucked under a knit cap, her eyes carrying a quiet sorrow. Over steaming mugs of chamomile tea, she shared how her 5-year relationship with her partner Leo had once been a vibrant tapestry of late-night talks and impulsive road trips. But over time, it unraveled into a cycle of arguments and unmet expectations. "I knew I needed to let go," she whispered, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "But it felt like betraying the person I used to be." Maya's story resonates with so many of us. Haven't we all clung to something familiar, even when it dimmed our spark? Elias taught that our unconscious is always whispering to us, sending signals through feelings of unease, exhaustion, or that nagging sense that something's off. For Maya, it was the tightness in her chest every time Leo dismissed her dream of opening an art gallery. Those weren't random emotions. They were her soul's plea to release what no longer aligned with her growth. Yet, like so many of us, she ignored them at first, terrified of the emptiness Leo's absence might leave. Elias would argue this fear of emptiness is misguided. What if that void isn't a wound, but a canvas waiting for new colors, new dreams, new connections, a new version of you? Imagine carrying a weathered leather backpack stuffed with stones, each one a resentment, an unfulfilled hope, a fear of being alone. Every day, you trudge forward, shoulders aching, the straps cutting into your skin. That backpack is the relationship, or the version of it, that no longer serves you. One day, you stop by a quiet riverbank, the water glinting under a golden sun, and you realize you can't take another step. Letting go isn't about erasing the past or pretending it didn't matter. It's about setting down that backpack, feeling the rush of relief as your body straightens, and trusting that the path ahead holds something lighter, something truer. This act of release, Elias believed, is a spiritual movement. It's not about cutting someone out of your life, but about freeing the energy you've poured into a connection that's grown heavy. It's an act of courage, of choosing your peace over familiarity. And in that choice, you create space for something authentic to bloom. A space where you can rediscover who you are without the weight of someone else's expectations. Every relationship, Elias taught, is a mirror. The people we love, fight with, or lose sleep over reflect something deep within us. Sometimes a strength we've overlooked, sometimes a wound we've buried. Think of someone who stirred your soul, for better or worse. That connection wasn't random. It was a chapter in the story of your growth, a lesson etched in the quiet corners of your heart. Consider Jonah, a 42-year-old high school teacher with a warm laugh and a habit of doodling in the margins of his lesson plans. Jonah once shared a story about his childhood friend, Tessa, who'd been his confidant since they were 12, sneaking out to stargaze on summer nights. Their bond felt unbreakable, like a lighthouse guiding him through life's storms. But as they grew older, Tessa's constant need for validation began to drain Jonah. She'd call me at 2 a.m., upset about something I couldn't fix, he said, his voice heavy with guilt. I wanted to be there for her, but it was like I was drowning, trying to save her. Elias would say Tessa was a mirror for Jonah, reflecting his own struggle to set boundaries. Growing up in a chaotic household, Jonah learned to be the fixer, always soothing others' pain at the cost of his own peace. Tessa's demands echoed that old pattern, pulling him back into a role he'd outgrown. When Jonah finally set limits, gently telling Tessa he needed space, he felt a pang of betrayal, as if he were abandoning the boy who'd once promised to always be there. But Elias taught that letting go isn't betrayal. It's honoring your evolution. Picture yourself in a grand hall of mirrors, each one reflecting a different relationship in your life. Some mirrors show your brightest self, your laughter, your kindness. Others reveal shadows, your insecurities, your fears of not being enough. Elias believed that when a relationship becomes a source of constant conflict, it's a sign that the mirror is showing you something you need to face. For Jonah, Tessa's mirror revealed his need to prioritize his own well-being. Letting go didn't mean erasing their history. It meant releasing the version of himself that felt obligated to carry her burdens. This process, Elias explained, is deeply spiritual. Our unconscious sends us signals, tight shoulders, sleepless nights, that knot in your stomach, urging us to release what no longer fits. But we often resist, clinging to the familiar because it's safer than the unknown. I remember a moment from my own life, sitting on a creaky porch swing as fireflies blinked in the dusk, wrestling with the decision to distance myself from a friend who'd grown toxic. The thought of letting go felt like losing a piece of myself. But Elias would remind us that what we're really losing is the illusion, the projection we've placed on that person, not the person themselves. By letting go, you're not just freeing the other person, you're freeing yourself from the stories you've woven around them. You're stepping out of the hall of mirrors and into a wide-open field where the air smells of wildflowers and possibility. That's where transformation begins, not in holding on, but in trusting that the universe has something brighter waiting for you. Letting go takes courage, the kind that burns quietly in your chest, urging you to choose yourself even when it hurts. Elias Moreau believed this act is a sacred rebellion against fear, a declaration that your peace is worth more than any attachment. But how do you find the strength to release someone when your heart is tangled in memories and what-ifs? Meet Lila, a 29-year-old nurse with a quick smile and a penchant for collecting vintage postcards. Lila's story began in a bustling hospital cafeteria where she met Ezra, a charismatic doctor who seemed to light up every room. Their whirlwind romance was a montage of stolen glances and late-night pizza runs. But 2 years in, Ezra's charm masked a growing distance. He'd cancel plans, dismiss Lila's feelings, and leave her questioning her worth. I kept thinking if I loved him harder, he'd change, Lila confessed, her voice cracking as she sat in a quiet park, watching leaves drift across the grass. Elias would say Lila was caught in a projection, seeing Ezra not as he was, but as the answer to her unspoken need for validation. Raised by a critical mother, Lila had learned to equate love with earning approval. Ezra's indifference mirrored that old wound, and letting go meant facing the fear that she wasn't enough. Elias taught that this confrontation with our shadows, our deepest insecurities, is where true growth happens. Letting go isn't just about the other person. It's about healing the parts of yourself that keep you tethered to pain. Imagine you're holding a delicate glass orb filled with swirling memories of someone you love. It's beautiful, but it's heavy, and your arms ache from carrying it. Letting go means setting that orb down, not because you've stopped caring, but because you trust that your hands are meant to hold something lighter. For Lila, letting go of Ezra was a slow, messy process. She journaled her feelings under the glow of a bedside lamp, cried into her pillow, and leaned on her friend Nora, who'd bring her homemade soup on tough days. One evening, standing on her balcony as the city hummed below, Lila felt a shift, a lightness, as if she'd finally exhaled. Elias believed that when we let go, we create space for synchronicity, those magical moments when the universe seems to conspire in our favor. For Lila, it was a chance encounter with a local art therapist who invited her to a workshop, sparking a passion for painting that filled her evenings with color and harrowing tales of love and loss, purpose. Letting go didn't erase Ezra's impact. It transformed it, turning pain into a stepping stone toward a fuller life. This courage isn't a single moment, but a series of choices. Some days, you'll feel strong, ready to embrace the unknown. Others, you'll doubt yourself, tempted to pick up that glass orb again. Elias would remind you that doubt is part of the journey. It's your soul stretching, learning to trust the path ahead. Letting go is an act of self-love, a promise to honor the person you're becoming, even when it feels like stepping into the dark. When you finally let go, something extraordinary happens. It's as if the world, once muted, bursts into color. The sky seems bluer, laughter feels richer, and your heart beats with a new rhythm. Elias Moreau called this a spiritual rebirth, a return to the authentic self you've always carried within. Letting go isn't just about releasing someone else. It's about unlocking the parts of yourself that were trapped in that connection. Let's follow Amara, a 34-year-old bookstore owner with a love for jazz and a habit of humming while shelving novels. Amara's story centers on her sister, Celeste, whose unpredictable moods had dominated their relationship for years. Growing up, Amara was the peacemaker, smoothing over Celeste's outbursts, while their parents looked the other way. As adults, Celeste's demands, endless calls, guilt trips, left Amara exhausted. "I felt like I was betraying her by pulling back," Amara said, her voice soft as she stood in her shop, surrounded by the comforting scent of old books and cedar. Elias would say Celeste was a mirror for Amara's shadow, the part of her that equated love with sacrifice. Letting go meant facing the guilt of prioritizing herself, a lesson rooted in her childhood role as the family's good girl. Amara's journey began with small steps, setting boundaries, like limiting calls to once a week and confiding in her friend Matteo, a local musician who'd faced similar struggles with his own family. One rainy afternoon, As Amara sat by her shop's window, watching raindrops race down the glass, she realized she felt lighter, not because Celeste had changed, but because she'd reclaimed her energy. This transformation, Elias taught, is about energy flow. When we cling to relationships that drain us, we bind our psychic energy, leaving us uninspired, even ill. Letting go releases that energy, like opening a dam. Suddenly, your creativity, dreams, and vitality rush back. For Amara, letting go of Celeste's expectations sparked a creative burst. She started hosting poetry nights at her shop, her laughter echoing through the cozy space. Elias believed this shift isn't random. It's the universe responding to your courage, sending synchronicities, new friendships, unexpected opportunities that align with your true self. Picture yourself as a tree, your branches heavy with unripe fruit, relationships, or beliefs that no longer serve you. Letting go is pruning those branches, painful but necessary, so new buds can bloom. Amara didn't cut Celeste out of her life. She redefined their relationship, creating space for both to grow. This isn't about erasing the past, but transforming it, honoring the lessons while stepping into a lighter version of yourself. Elias called this the integration of shadows, embracing your fears, guilt, or anger as teachers, not enemies. By facing them, you become whole, no longer seeking completion in others. This internal shift ripples outward. Amara noticed how her other relationships deepened. Friends lingered longer at her shop, drawn to her newfound ease. Letting go isn't just personal. It's a gift to everyone around you, a reminder that authenticity is contagious. And in that space, Elias promised, the universe delivers exactly what you need. A truth Amara felt every time a customer left her shop smiling, carrying a book she'd recommended with a spark in their eyes. Letting go feels like standing on a cliff, the wind whipping through your hair, the vast, unknown stretching below. It's terrifying, exhilarating, and profoundly liberating. Elias Moreau taught that true growth lies in embracing this uncertainty, trusting that the universe is guiding you towards something greater than you can imagine. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of a journey back to your deepest truth. Meet Theo, a 47-year-old carpenter with calloused hands and a quiet wisdom that made everyone feel heard. Theo's story revolves around his marriage to Nora, a relationship that began with picnics by the lake and ended in silent dinners and unspoken resentments. For years, Theo stayed, fearing that leaving would shatter their two children and his sense of duty. "I thought holding on was strength," he said, his voice steady as he sat in his workshop, the air thick with sawdust and the hum of a distant radio. But it was fear. Elias would say Theo was wrestling with his shadow, the fear of failure, rooted in watching his parents' marriage crumble when he was 10. Letting go meant facing that boy's pain, the one who blamed himself for not being enough. Theo's journey was gradual. Couples therapy, late-night talks with his brother, and moments of stillness in his workshop, where the rhythm of sanding wood became a meditation. When he and Nora finally separated, it wasn't with anger, but with gratitude for the lessons, the children, the years that shaped them. Imagine life as a river, and you're clinging to a jagged rock, the current tugging at you. Letting go means trusting the river to carry you, not to destruction, but to calmer waters, new shores. For Theo, letting go brought unexpected gifts, a closer bond with his kids who thrived in the honesty of their parents' choice, a new passion for teaching woodworking to teens, and a friendship with a local baker, whose warm smile made his heart stutter. Elias called these synchronicities, signs that you're aligned with your purpose, that the universe is whispering, you're on the right path. This process isn't linear. Theo had days of doubt, waking at 3 a.m. to stare at the ceiling, wondering if he'd made a mistake. Elias taught that these moments are sacred. They're your soul testing its wings, learning to soar. Letting go requires patience, self-compassion, and faith that every step, even the shaky ones, is leading you home. Theo felt this one crisp morning, standing by the lake where he and Nora once picnicked, the water mirroring a sunrise so vivid it felt like a promise. He was free, not from love, but from the weight of a life that no longer fit. Letting go, Elias promised, is a spiritual homecoming. It's not about erasing someone, but honoring their role in your story and choosing yourself. It's about standing on that cliff, feeling the wind and leaping, not because you're fearless, but because you trust that the unknown holds everything you need to become whole. What happens when you let go and the world opens up as if it's been waiting for you all along? Elias Moreau believed that releasing what no longer serves you isn't just an ending. It's an invitation to step into a life so vibrant, so aligned with your essence, that it feels like waking from a long dream. This is the gift of new beginnings, where the space you've created becomes a garden for growth, connection, and rediscovery. Let's meet Sienna, a 31-year-old yoga instructor with a contagious laugh and a collection of mismatched earrings she wore like badges of courage. Sienna's story began in a sunlit studio where she taught mindfulness but struggled to practice it in her own life. For years, she'd been tethered to a friendship with Harper, a charismatic but draining presence who thrived on drama. Being around Harper was like walking on eggshells, Sienna said, her voice soft as she sat cross-legged on a woven mat, the scent of lavender oil lingering in the air. I loved her, but I was losing myself. Elias would say Harper was a mirror for Sienna's shadow, her fear of being unlovable, planted by a childhood of moving between foster homes. Letting go meant facing that fear, the raw ache of wondering if she'd ever belong. Sienna's journey unfolded in quiet moments, journaling under a sprawling oak tree, crying during a solo hike as the wind carried her grief away, and confiding in her mentor Ravi, a gentle soul who reminded her that she was enough. One evening, as Sienna lit a candle and wrote a letter to Harper, never sent, but a release of all she'd held in, she felt a shift, like a knot unraveling in her chest. This release, Elias taught, creates a vacuum that the universe rushes to fill, not with more of the same, but with what truly resonates. For Sienna, it was a new community, a book club, where she debated novels with strangers who became family. A pottery class where her hands shaped clay into wonky, beautiful bowls, and a budding romance with Luca, a quiet photographer whose thoughtful questions made her feel seen. Picture a garden after a long winter, the soil tilled and ready. Letting go is that tilling, and new beginnings are the blooms that emerge, vivid and unexpected. Sienna's transformation wasn't just personal. Her yoga classes became electric, students lingering to share stories, drawn to her authenticity. Elias believed that when you align with your truth, you become a beacon, inspiring others to do the same. One day, a shy student approached Sienna, confessing she'd left a toxic job after watching Sienna's courage. "You showed me it's okay to choose myself," she said, her eyes bright. Sienna realized then that letting go wasn't just her story. It was a ripple, touching lives she'd never imagined. This is the magic of new beginnings. They don't erase the past, but weave it into something richer. Sienna didn't forget Harper. She cherished the laughter, the late-night talks, and let the rest go like leaves on a stream. Elias called this alchemy, turning pain into wisdom, loss into possibility. Standing in her studio one morning, sunlight streaming through the windows, Sienna felt it, a lightness, a certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Letting go had given her the greatest gift, not just a new chapter, but a whole new story, written in her own hand.